Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Peaceful Prisons Podcast. Today I'm here with, of course, Abby Martin
Thank you.
and Marci Marie. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you on as a guest. You're doing amazing work, advocacy, speaking about these issues. And I think on this episode we want to dive into the field squad, Texas specifically, um, and the field workers. The outside workers that go out of the institution, work in the fields, work outside. What that entails, what that's like, and the realities behind that. So yeah, let's just hear a little bit of your background and how you experienced that, Marcy.
Sure. I was assigned to the field squad. When you get into Texas prisons, you see the unit classification committee, and it's made up of like three people. And one of them on my committee happened to be the warden. And I remember she was just like, well, you look young and healthy, and it doesn't matter about your education or your prior work. That's not what we're looking at here. You look young and healthy, and I think we'll put you on the field squad. And the very next morning, I had to listen. I get back to the dorm. I'm like, okay, I'm on the field squad. And everybody's like, oh man, oh no. And I'm like, what is it? I like to be outside. I don't mind working outside. They said I'm going to work in a garden. I like gardening. And the girls are like, no, it's bad. And so you have to kind of get, the staff, they don't tell you anything, right? You have to get all the information from the people you're locked up with. And I don't know when I'm supposed to go to work. I don't know what to do. And they're like, you just need to listen. What hoe are you on? And I'm like, what hoe? And they're like, yeah. And so I look at my pass and it says 3 hoe. So I'm like, okay, well, so I'm on 3 hoes. They're like, yeah, so in the morning at about 5:30, you need to start listening. 3 hoe turn out. That's how you know. And so the next morning I get up and get ready, and I'm just kind of waiting, and I hear the over the intercom, and I hear him like 3, 4, 5 hoe, get ready. And then the officer comes in and like, all you hoes line up, hoes come up, turn out, hoes turn out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what this is. It was really just that whole thing was really interesting. But then I get out there and I realize it's a garden, all right. It's a huge, massive, right? It's not gardening. It's working in the fields. It's anybody that has seen any plantation movie where they are working in the fields, that's what it is. That's exactly what it looks like, except instead of enslaved people, it's a different kind of enslaved people. It's incarcerated people working those fields.
So in these fields that you're working in, are it's produce like for the prison for whom? Where does that all go?
Yeah, so the TDCJ, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, leases the land. And so the crops that we harvest, corn, potatoes, lettuce, cabbage, the crops that we harvest, a portion of it goes to the landowner, and ideally the other portion feeds the incarcerated population. I rarely got to eat things that I harvested because I was housed on a larger unit. And so when they feed a unit, they have to make sure they have enough to feed everybody on that unit. So the things that I harvested usually went to the smaller units. We very rarely got fresh produce or anything like that. Potatoes, yes, we did get potatoes.
Yeah. So you get up, you're lining up, you're getting ready to go out to this field. I'm assuming it's pretty early in the morning, but it's already starting to get warm out. Tell us about the conditions, what you're wearing. Put us in the situation for us.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that question. We are in Texas, so the summers are really brutal here. And In the dorm I'm living doesn't have air conditioning, so that's part of it. And then we're going
Mm,
outside, and yeah, it's already feeling muggy and humid, and the things that Texas weather feels in July in the morning, and it's still feeling ugly. We're not given sunscreen. We're not given any hat or any kind of thing to shade us or protect our faces from the sun. We're wearing our prison uniform, which is like this polyester blend, not breathable pants and shirt. It's not very comfortable. They give you state issued boots. And on the bottom of those boots, it says offender. So when you walk in the dirt, I have this really clear image of walking behind the ladies in front of me and seeing like offender, offender, offender. It's really, that was kind of one of those surreal moments
wow.
for me during my incarceration. But they're like a plastic boot. They're not comfortable at all. And so the the issue wasn't so much like, hey, we're out here harvesting food. The issue was all of the things that came with that. It was the entire culture of oppression kind of around that job. And it started with getting strip searched to go to work. And
Mm,
so that was one of the things. And when you live in cell block, they'll call you, 3 ho, be at the door, and you have to get at the door. That doesn't mean get at the door and wait. That means get completely naked and stand at the door. And so
huh.
With
it's
like everybody else. You're just
particularly
like naked in a room with everybody else.
well, so if you're in cell blocks, so you're in a two-man cell, so you're naked with your roommate there, but there is a window in your cell, in your cell door, and we can see across. The staff can all see, it's not just, it is female staff coming to your door, but our lieutenants and sergeants and the other bosses are all down in the day room, and they can see. It's this weird, it's just this weird way that it's handled. I feel truly that it's just meant to further humiliate you, to knock you down just a little bit further. There's definitely ways that they could do that where it would not feel so ugly, right? And if you happen to be still pulling your sports bra off or something when the law passes, they leave you. And that's a disciplinary case. So there's
Oh,
that.
wow.
There's that. It's like stressy from the moment they say 3 ho, get ready. You're like, because it's so many times that you could get in trouble, so many opportunities for them to write you a case. And so the strip search is it's fairly invasive, right? They're checking your gum lines behind your ears, lift your breasts, and all this, squat, cough, the whole thing, turn around, spread your hiney, just the whole thing. And it's not often done in just a robotic professional way. And I have had officers that are definitely like, hey, you can tell that they're like not liking it any more than you. You can tell they're just there to do their job, and it's like squat, cough, dut, 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 and you just get it done. But then there's officers that are making comments about your body and yelling and making comments about someone else's body to you, like what they just saw in the cell before, or just this insanity, just this way of shaming women. And so that's how your workday starts, right? And then you go out and they say deuce it up. So you have somebody there next to you that you're walking with, and so it's like two lines of women deuce it up, and that's who you walk with. And
Mm,
you walk out the back gate and march to the field. Sometimes, if you're going to a field that's further, they have a tractor that pulls like a hayride, and you do get up on the trailer. You have to, on that trailer, it's really interesting. You're not really supposed to talk to one another, and you have to have your head down.
mm,
Yeah, you can get in trouble for looking around. So yeah,
huh.
that's how your day starts, right? And then you get to the fields, and it's very hard labor. You have officers that are on horseback. They're armed, and they're watching you work, ordering your work, giving you orders in a very harsh way. For example, one of our duties would be to pull weeds. So if it was a day that we're pulling weeds, we're all lined up in the field. Each of us have our own row, and we're have to stand up and bend at the waist. So we can't bend our knees. I can't stand up straight and stretch. I am hunched, bent over at the waist, pulling weeds the entire time. So if I need a stretch, which obviously you do after being in that
Yeah.
position for that amount of time, we would be like, I'd be bent over pulling weeds, and the girl next to me, I'd be like, girl, I need to stretch, and she'd be like, okay. And so she would be side-eyeing the laws on this side of me, and I would be watching the ones on this side, and then we would just kind of calculate when could I stand up and just get a stretch in and then get right back to work. And all of that you is the threat of a disciplinary case. And I will keep talking if you don't stop me, but I do have another just something that happened this weekend. I did a march in San Antonio, and it was hot. I didn't plan very well, so I ended up marching to the destination and not having a car seat with me. I had my little nephew and realizing, oh crap, I got to walk all the way back, right? And it's hot, and I was about a mile on my way back, a mile through the way back, right? And I'm hot and I'm feeling overheated, and I was like, I bit off more than I can chew here, and I just had this. It hit me this PTSD moment, and I have been diagnosed with PTSD from prison trauma. But this moment where it hit me, and I just felt it all over. There were times during working the host squad out in the fields when there were people that could not handle that physical labor. They had been in county where they weren't getting moving much, or they were maybe out of shape from that. They had been in the air conditioning, and now they're housed where there's not air conditioning, and we're out working in the sun, and they would pass out or fall. And that we had a lieutenant that he would just yell, like he would just pick that hoe up, pick her up. And I remember we would each get on each side of her, and if she falls back, all three of y'all are getting hooked up, and that's a disciplinary case. But it was that,
Wow.
yeah, and it just hit me coming back. And anyways, it gave me motivation to finish my little walk back to the car, because I thought my girls inside are dealing with a lot worse, right? But yeah, it was very it was surreal. It was surreal.
Yeah, I can imagine, starting out your day by being put through that kind of stress and anxiety and degradation, where you have certain COs that are talking down to you like that. And then you go outside and you're being put through this, also physically demanding type of work. And like you said, if you stood up to stretch or something, what were some of the like officers' reactions to trying to discipline you or keep you in line while you were working? Would it be just a comment from them like, "Hey, get back to work," or would they? What was it like?
Well, it was a lot of yelling, and it was a lot of writing disciplinary cases. Now, we did
Mm,
have punishments that were laborious. For example, we had, there was TDCJ policy says that host squad can't turn out if there's lightning, or if
mm,
it's below a freezing or above a certain temperature outside. And
mm.
we were at the back gate one time, and we were cold. We were freezing. Do you hear me? We were cold. And we get to that back gate, and we hear on the radio they do the temperature call. And he says on the radio that it's 30 degrees, and we start cheering like we're excited.
Yes.
And that lieutenant says, I didn't hear a
Yeah.
thing. And we went on out to work. Well, people submitted grievances over that.
Mhm.
So we go to work after the grievances have been processed, and they have us They have this pile of rocks at the bottom. We call it a mountain. There's not really mountains in Texas, so it's a big hill, right? To be fair, and we have we have this pile of rocks, and we have red chain bags, which is like a potato sack. It's what we haul our property in when they move us from unit to unit. And he says, everybody grab a chain bag, and we have to fill our bags with rocks and march up the hill and dump the rocks out and then back around. And when all of the rocks were at the top of the hill, we had to do it again, but take the rocks back down. It was literally just it
Just
was just
punishment. There's
punishment for the
no purpose.
grievances. And you know, by this time I was 5 or 6 years in. I had had just a little bit of favor because I worked well outside. I was healthy enough that I was doing my job without much problems. I had learned to navigate, you know, the officers, and I remember that he said, Simmons, if you pass somebody up, if you know, if you loop, like if you double up on somebody, I'll let you stop. And so I just start booking it, right? And I end up passing. Well, I get to the top of the hill and he's like, okay, stop. And I stop and he has me start filling up the girls' chain bags, the ladies. I want to stop saying girls because they are not girls. They're powerful women. They are survivors. And I'm going to stop saying that. But the women that I was incarcerated with, he has me filling their chain bags with rocks. And I'm trying to take it easy, and he's yelling at me, no, 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 you know, all the way up, all the way up. And he's like, get them on their shoulder. And I'm just looking at these ladies that are struggling, and it's hot, and they've been up and down this hill for hours now hauling these rocks, and I'm putting, you know, this, I feel like I'm the one putting this weight on their shoulder. And then a lady comes up and he says, fill hers all the way, she's one of the ones that wrote a grievance. I mean, he just just
Wow.
automatically. And I remember, and she's looking at me because she knows I can't do anything, and she's
Yeah.
telling me, and her name is New York. Her nickname was New York, and she's just like, Marcy, just do it, baby, just go. And I'm looking at her, and I'm sorry, and I'm filling the bag up, and he's yelling, and her and I are communicating without him really understanding. We're just seeing each other's eyes, like we're both in this horrible position, and there's not anything we can do about it. Yeah, that was just pure punishment.
Yeah, so they're just using retaliation, really, just to try and get back at you for bringing something up that could, you know, endanger your life, really. If you're going out in too hot or too cold a weather, it sounds like you're just trying to survive, you know, and just being sentenced to any amount of time in prison should be a punishment enough, but they're doubling up, it sounds like. And I'm sorry that you were put through that, and all these women were put through that, and still are to this day. It's sad, and I'm glad we're bringing this up because a lot of people need to hear about it. So you're going about your work day, and you get to the end of the day, and how does that go? They round you up and take you back to your unit, or you have to go through a process?
Yeah, I want to, if we can backtrack just a little
Hmm.
bit to water and restrooms during
Oh
this
yeah,
time, right? Because we're
Yeah, I was
out in
going
the
to
middle
ask
of
about
the,
water too.
yeah,
yeah.
every 4 hours that you're out there, the water wagon comes around. We call it the water wagon, and it's this big metal container that's sitting outside. It's hot water. It's hot in Texas. It's the water sitting in there, you know, but it's still water, and it has like six spigots surrounding it. So we do get a water break, but they count to three. So what they'll do is like the first six, they'll say, deuce up, water break, deuce it up. And everybody will deuce up, and then they'll say the first six, and you get over there, and it's one, two, three, and you're done. And so
Wow.
if your instinct, especially if you're working where it's real dirty and you've got like hauling hay, you end up with this whole layer of muck on you when you're dealing
Yeah.
with that hay. And your instinct is to splash your face. You get in trouble for
Mhm.
that. Your instinct is to like cool off your arms. You get
Yeah.
in trouble for that. What people have learned is you could buy like a handkerchief off commissary. And so you would put your handkerchief under your mouth and you would drink while your hanky got wet. And then as you're walking back, you would try to and again, that's a privilege that comes with people that could afford commissary because Texas doesn't pay you anything. So it's not like someone could buy that for themselves. But uh,
That's
yeah, so that
Wait.
insane.
You're not getting paid for any of this time out there by the
no.
Department of Justice.
Wait,
No.
what? This isn't like a
No.
job
I mean, this is a job. No, Texas,
Right.
people incarcerated in Texas don't get paid for their labor.
at
No
all. Zero.
commissary, like,
No,
tickets or
zero.
anything. Just wow.
$0 an hour.
That's
Nothing.
But
insane.
There's
but
no
And
they
you're
make
mad
the
about like
work
21 cents
mandatory,
an hour.
right?
They get nothing.
exchange.
Right.
Say that again, Balin.
So, but this work is mandatory, or you get written up, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It
Hmm.
could, I mean, enough disciplinary cases and could hurt your chances at parole. It keeps you from
Yeah.
calling home to your family visitation. Yeah, there are severe consequences for not working. It absolutely is required, and you are not compensated. And I mean, that's the 13th Amendment, right? We're going to abolish slavery unless someone has been convicted of a felony. And
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing that, but yeah, so it's perfectly legal and it absolutely happens. There's still 5 or 6 states that don't give any compensation for, uh, and then there's states that give 6 cents an hour or 19 cents
Yeah.
an hour.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
really sorry to hear that. That's extremely difficult. It's hard to find any sort of motivation to keep going. Like while you're out there working, besides not getting in trouble. Trying to focus on those connections with your support system, family, or just, staying out of the hole, staying out of segregation. I feel like that's the biggest motivation.
I remember
Yeah.
as a kid, I watched this movie called Holes, and it was based off of a book. And essentially, the plot line is like a bunch of kids get into trouble and they get sent off into this camp where they just dig holes. And as a kid, I thought, like, oh my God, what is this? Like, it was a utopian world of just like chaos and no rules. And like, you can't just make kids dig holes. And I was just like so angry about it. And then as an adult, I'm learning like, oh no, that's actually real life and it's traumatic and terrifying and happening all over. And it's so disgusting. Like it's something that you
Yeah.
think of movies and not real life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
society works really hard at keeping it that way. This is just a movie
Yeah.
thing. It's not really happening. Don't look too closely.
Yeah.
And
So you're only getting water every about 4 hours. Are you getting a lunch break, or you have like a sack lunch, or how does
So
that
you
work?
do, yeah, you do break for lunch. So you break for lunch and you have to get stripped out, and we'll talk about that's a whole different strip search. And so usually, usually after 4 or 5 hours of work, you don't turn out second half. They just changed that in the past 10 years that they're not turning out second half, but it used to be you would turn back out again for another couple hours after lunch. So I
Oh.
wanted to talk about, since we were talking about the money and not getting paid, an
Hmm.
interesting fact is the Department of Criminal Justice here in Texas kind of presents it like, well, they're growing their own food. Our inmates are,
mhm.
we're our prisons
Self-sustaining.
are right, exactly, so exactly, and that's just so far from the truth. And in fact, in 2021, my friend Carrie Blakinger was writing for the Marshall Project at that time, and she did an entire expose. She pulled all of the public records and discovered that they're actually losing money in this agriculture practice. They are not making money. They are not even breaking even. They are actually taking a loss, and I just think that goes to show you all the more how not just Texas, but several of these southern states that are still using this kind of labor are just they're holding on to that culture of oppression. It just like even if they're losing money, they just can't let go of this culture. Uh,
And
so
speaking of oppression, you've called it kind of like the hoe squad several times, and guards are calling it hoe squad. Is that because you guys are like in the field and you're using like garden tools like hoes, or is it straight oppression, derogatory use of that?
Well, I think that the term definitely comes from using a garden hoe like that. And now the way that we're spoke to is not. It's in a ugly, derogatory way, laughing way. Sometimes the officers will kind of be laughing as they say things like that, but it's definitely a form of oppression and degradation, all of that for sure. Uh, and the same way, well, I know this is y'all's show, and I will keep talking, so you have to
It's all
stop
right. We
me.
love it.
I want to also talk about the bathrooms real quick because just the
Yeah.
same way that that water wagon comes around, the bathrooms come around. It's porta potties, like two porta potties on a trailer, and so every 4 hours, the bathrooms come around, and that's really tricky because everybody does not get the opportunity to use the bathroom at that time. The way it works is however long your boss thinks that they have, if they want to give a 5 minute break or if they, however long. So they'll say, deuce it up for bathroom breaks. You deuce up, and then you raise your hand if you need to go. And most everybody will raise their
Yeah.
hand.
After four
And
hours, absolutely.
right. And then they'll just hand pick. They might hand pick four people. They might hand out of a squad of 30. They might hand pick 10 people. They're not going to pick more than 10 to go onto the bathroom break.
Then
So if
how
you're
do
on
you?
your cycle, yeah, we'd be
Yeah.
like waving our tampons, Abby. Like you have to bring your own feminine hygiene products with you, which is a whole nother thing. You can imagine having that in your sweaty bra because that's the only place you can keep it while you're working. But we would be like holding up, please pick me. And if you didn't get picked, baby, you still had to change your feminine hygiene project. You still had to do what you had to do, and we were doing that in the fields. I have never. I remember the first few times that I witnessed that happening for somebody having to change a maxi pad or a tampon in the field, and I just remember thinking, "This is I will never. I could never."
Yeah.
But but guess what?
You learn
I
quick.
did,
Yeah.
and it just was another one of those things. And that happened so often, and the staff was very much aware. That was not something that we were hiding from the staff. I mean, that was something that, hey, we got to do this real quick, and um, I got a fly flying around here, but
Not walking around, so you're fine.
yeah. Yeah, the girls would kind of the ladies would kind of semicircle and give you just a little bit of coverage from the male officers, and they'd be yelling at you, hurry that shit up, hurry up, get done with that, and you would just bury the soiled whatever, and your hands were dirty from being
Yeah.
outside, and then your hands are dirty from changing, and we would rub our hands in the dirt, and I remember like washing my hands with sand and dirt from the fields afterwards.
That
It
is
was,
so unhealthy and
Yeah.
unsanitary.
oh yeah, a
And then
thousand
the used
times.
products just go back into the field.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, just
Yikes.
buried right
Wow.
there.
I'm sorry you were like again, I'm sorry you put through that, and I'm sorry that's even something that's happening at all. I feel like this should have been brought up and outlawed many years ago by
Yeah.
now, you know. It's just unfortunate to hear these stories.
It's crazy to think that that it's 2024 and these kind of
Yeah.
things are happening right now. Right now. Today's Saturday, so that we're recording on a Saturday, and they're not turned out right now. But Monday through Friday, this is happening. Yeah, every day.
Mm.
Right here. It almost seems like the prison system here in Texas is like 35, 45 years behind on any kind of what's okay and what's not, right?
Mm.
So then
Yeah,
they
do you
don't,
think it's just a, sorry, go ahead, Abby.
so I'm just saying they don't let you hydrate. They don't let you use the bathroom appropriately. They don't provide any sort of, kind of mandatory health needs like AC, and then you get punished if your body passes out. Something completely out of your control.
Yeah. Yeah. You get yelled at and punished. And I remember women kind of falling back and falling down, and the especially the lieutenant that I had my entire incarceration. I remember him saying, "Put a cheeseburger in front of that hoe, and I bet she can get up." And just very, very harsh, derogatory. If he was in a different workplace, if he was saying that
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
workers, he would be
Right.
in.
It's an
But
HR
it's funny.
nightmare. That's what that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But these kind of things, since we're incarcerated, we don't have the right to be treated respectfully or not have those
Mhm.
comments made towards us at a workplace. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's very degrading. And so at the end of the workday, we have to strip again. So now we've been
Have you
working
showered at
and
this point? Like, are you cleaned up from the day?
oh no, not at all. It's
So
it's
you're
right when we're
sweaty,
coming
dirty,
in.
maybe covered in menstruation, if that's
Yeah.
your
Yes.
cycle, and then you're getting naked in front of
Yeah.
peers and admin.
That's exactly what it is. We go in
Okay.
and the unit that I was on, you go in and it's a room about the size of a normal an average size bedroom, and they take about 20 women at a time because maybe 200 women turned out. It's like one, two, three,
Oh.
four, five, six
It's a whole
squads
operation.
of
It's not,
right.
Mhm.
So they take about 20 at a time, and however many women or female bosses worked that day, if it's two, if it's three, that's how many lines that we're going to make inside. So the bosses stand on one end of the room, and as we come in, there's a trash can. Any if you some people you have to bring your own toilet paper also, so for the bathroom, so you get rid of your toilet paper, any trash you have on you, including feminine hygiene products. You cannot have those on or be wearing a tampon. That goes in the trash can when you come in, and then you strip completely naked and get
if
in
the tampon
line.
is inside of you, you have to take it out.
Yes.
So then
Yeah.
you're just like free bleeding.
Yes.
And okay.
And so is whomever else might
Yeah.
be on their cycle. So you're walking in it. You learn very quickly just to completely disassociate yourself from that situation because it's there. And then part of the stripping, um, it's just so much worse because we're hot, we're sweaty. Obviously, a room full of people that have been working outside.
Yeah,
The odor is
exhausted,
bad. The
Yeah.
bosses are
dehydrated.
talking horribly. Yeah, they're talking horribly. Like, you hoes stink. I can't believe y'all smell like this. And
Well,
I
bathe
mean,
us
well,
then.
and we're in a
Mhm.
room with it's concentrated. There's
Yeah.
20 of us in this small room
Mhm.
that has no ventilation. Of course, it smells horrible. Of course, nobody smells great after working out in the field all day, but it's just this more. And if you've bled on your panties, or the officers will they have gloves on, but they make this big production, and it's the same gloves for everybody. That's the whole.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, anybody who's gone in front of you, they have handled all of their sweaty, dirty clothes, and now they're
Mhm.
handling yours that you're getting ready to put on. And again, your clothes on the floor. You just learn just to you honestly, you just do it because there's
Mhm.
no other. There's not an alternative. The alternative is like Baylen said, disciplinary action, not no phone calls, and eventually solitary confinement. that's no contact visits with your kids. I mean, the punishments. So you just learn just to
Deep.
do it,
Yeah.
but it's horrible. Yeah,
Just
it's
it
awful.
does not seem sustainable. Like it doesn't seem like it's not sustainable to not give your workers water because they could, even from like a purely financial outlook, giving your employees more water would mean that they could work harder and longer. I mean, even if you were straight money oriented, that makes sense. So this is just being vindictive and cruel and making sure
Yeah,
others feel less than you.
Yeah,
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not sustainable to like not change your gloves because then you spread diseases. And I mean,
yeah.
this
Then the
is
health
just
costs after
your,
that,
yes,
outweigh the cost of changing your gloves out. And it's
yeah.
just it's kind of worrying to me that there's hundreds of women going out there being subjected to this work, essentially punished like this for so long, for years. How long would some women be out on this field crew? Would they be working there for years, a few
Yeah.
days, and then go find another job, or
No, I
it
worked
would
there
it?
for ten years.
You worked there the
I
Oh,
was,
entire time.
yeah.
wow,
Yeah, I
wow,
there were a few times that so I would still have the same lieutenant, so I would like still be in the same department, but they would put me in the herb garden. So like if you're really behaving well and you have favor with the officers, then they're going to give you maybe a little bit more of a privilege, and then you do something to get in trouble, and they'd be like back to the field. So I'd and I didn't do my time the easiest of way. I was a disruptor inside the same way I'm a disruptor out here. When I see something that's wrong, I have a hard time keeping my mouth shut. So I would end up back on the field squad. There's lots of women that are housed in medium custody. That's the only job for medium custody incarcerated Texans is field squad. So say you maybe had an escape charge at county, like maybe you slipped your cuffs or something and you have that code. So now you're housed in medium custody. Now you're working that your entire sentence no matter what. So there are options like if I were if I were going into the system now and they put me on host squad, I would work there for a while and I might one option is to like talk to other bosses. When I go to chow, I'm going to say, "Don't you need somebody over here? Don't you want to pull me?" And sometimes you can get another boss to pull you.
So it's a
yeah,
lot of favoritism.
Oh,
That
yeah. 100%. And I'm so embarrassed to say, I say it often, how hard I worked for those people and how we would almost just fight over getting a better job within the same crappy job. Like, okay, well now I'm working in the herb garden and now I'm picking vegetables and fruit for the officers. And that's like, why in the world would I be
yeah.
brainwashed enough? I let that brainwash me. I let
Well,
them
of course.
ask.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's human. I mean,
Yeah.
I just keep thinking of my
yeah.
son.
You're trying to get out of the suffering, get out of the
Yeah.
sun and out of the heat. You're trying to get, some kind of comfort at all, just to not be so uncomfortable all the time.
And still work for free and still to get to that point I would have had to been like a lead row on host squad, which means I'm carrying the line a lot, which means I'm picking up other people's slacks, which in turn makes you almost become the oppressor yourself. I There were just lots of times that I know that I talked harshly to people that were newer and that weren't keeping up because I'm like getting yelled at over here. And when you're in that position, he'd be like, if anybody falls back, I'm hooking you up too. And just this, it's a horrible situation to be in for anybody. It's a horrible job, the fact that they lose money, just the whole thing. The whole thing. Picking
Yeah,
fresh vegetables when you don't get to eat fresh vegetables. Like
Uh,
it's just
yeah.
the whole thing.
And it just seems unnecessary to me. Just looking back in my experience, why they would strip you out before going out to work in these fields, like obviously it's security reasons, but there's nothing you're going to bring out into the field, and like it's just kind of um, nonsensical to me. It just doesn't make any sense. And then you're subject to another search when you come back in, probably so they don't, they don't want you bringing anything, any contraband back into your living dorm or cells. And yeah, you're
But
just put through so many searches.
this way that they search you coming back in, it's we still brought stuff back if we wanted it. You cannot have 3 officers and 20 people and think that you're doing an effective job at making sure no one has contraband. That's what the most frustrating thing is. And I've
Yeah.
often said this about other things like the lockdown shakes. I remember the first lockdown I went through, I said, Dad, if I had a small 22 with me, I could have gotten it through. This is just for show. It's all smoke and mirrors, and it's all just to further oppress you. If you wanted to do an effective job, it would be far more humane because you would have 2 or 3 people in there at once, and not the
Mhm.
way that we're lined up like cattle, standing naked, back, almost touching because it's a small room. You're naked and you're close quarters. And I've heard men working field squad make that same complaint that they have naked men almost just touching when they're in line coming in from work. So it's not even effective. If it was effective in keeping the facility safe or maintaining
Right.
security, that would be one thing, but it's far from effective. We brought in, and you know what kind of contraband we brought in?
Food.
Flowers.
Flowers.
Flowers, food, pets. We had people bring in frogs, mice, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we nothing. We weren't bringing in shanks or whatever they thought. We weren't bringing in dope or any of that. We were
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
It just seems like they're just oppressing.
how do you come back from that? So now you're out of prison, you're trying, maybe you're working, maybe you're trying to find a job, but you're used to a decade, 2 decades, whatever that looks like, of this style of a workplace. How do you come back?
Yeah, we see people handle that in all different ways, and some people just cut that part of their life completely out. I have friends that I was incarcerated with and worked in those kind of conditions with that maybe they only have 2 people on Facebook that they were friends with in prison because they just need to completely disassociate from that. For me, it's about taking back my own narrative, owning my own story, and not allowing the institution to tell their version, but to own my truth and let that empower me and hopefully empower other women. And I'm on a women's prison, but we had trans men there, so I should say women and gender expansive folks coming out of those conditions, uh, giving them a voice and a platform, and empowering them to tell their truth as well. And I think that the more people that we do that, and just like you all do on this podcast, the more spread awareness that we spread, that's when change really starts to happen. Policy work and legislation work, all of that starts with conversations like this.
Mhm. Yeah, just making everyone aware of the issue is the first step, and then we can talk about, how we can move past it and figure out the issues and solve them. Um, I hope there's some kind of, talk therapy, maybe some groups you can talk to others about this that have been through similar things, or if you have a counselor therapist, or, you know, I'm sure there's many ways you can try and process this and come out the other side healing and stronger. That's my hope, is that, we can grow from this somehow, and make it better for the future generations. Is there anything you'd like, the general public to know, or anything they could do to help out family support systems?
Yeah, well, for sure, conversations like this. So if anybody's
Hmm.
listening that has never heard of this, get on
Hmm.
Google and have
Yeah.
conversations with your family and friends and let them know that this is going on. And I can't leave without plugging my organization.
Yeah.
I'm part of line is Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, and we advocate for women, girls, and gender expansive, currently and formerly incarcerated folks in Texas. And that's another way that we heal. We do have volunteer mental health professionals that offer services for us, and we also have peer support specialists. And so that's one way that if you're in Texas coming out of a women's prison, that you can overcome some of that past.
That's excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us, Marcy. It's been an honor having you on, and thank you for exposing us to these realities and the truths behind this. It's so important to hear it straight from you, from people that have experienced this. And I hope anyone listening can, like you said, just share the news and try and show some support in any way. So, yeah, thank you very much for your time, Marcy.
Yeah, thank you both so much for having me, and thank you for all your work. I see you, and it's excellent work, and it's important work, and I appreciate you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.